Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Today we're going to be coming at you with another tier list, but today we're going to be trying something a little different, maybe even a little bit crazier. We're going to be doing a tier list for every single player who's going to be starting or projected to be starting in the LCS for the beginning of Spring Split in 21, for the LCS lock-in tournament, all of that stuff. We've gone through, we've rated them each by position, but I've had some time to think about all this stuff. Maybe I want to move some guys around. This is going to be kind of a longer video, obviously, but stick with me through it. I think it's really going to be worth it. It's going to be fun and exciting. Obviously, you can skip around and stuff if you need. And definitely let me know what your guys' tier list looks like as well. Let me know what I got right, what I got wrong, all that stuff. But today is the definitive tier list. We're going to be ranking my rankings for every single player in the LCS headed into 2021. But before we get into that, I just want to mention a quick word from our sponsor, who is Draftbuff. This is a fantasy esports app and website. It is super awesome. As I say on their site, you can build a fantasy team of the best players in esports. They have fantasy leagues where you can play head-to-head all season long with your friends or with people that you meet on the site, because they have new leagues starting up all the time that you can just hop right into. They have Royale, where there's 100 entries, one winner. You draft on a budget, you have an amount of money, you get to pick players to fit underneath that like salary cap type thing. That's a really fun mode. And then they have Draft Pass, where you can earn avatars and taunts to show who's the boss. They have all different kinds of esports like League of Legends, Rainbow Six, Call of Duty League, all of that good stuff. Obviously, the beginning of LEC, LCS, LCK, all is right around the corner. So make sure you check out Draftbuff, get signed up, and start playing today. Make sure you use code IAMJERM. And yeah, thank you so much, Draftbuff. Here we go, getting right into this one, which again, this is going to be a long one, but we're going to get through this, boys. We got 50 players to get through, 50 players to start ranking, so let's get right into it. Yeah, let's go. First up, we have Fate God. He is the new top laner for Team Dignitas. I'm not really excited for this guy. We've seen a little bit of him in the LCS. I believe he even won Rookie of the Split one year. But I think he's going to be one of the weaker solo laners. I wasn't super impressed from what I've seen from him in either Academy or in the LCS, so he is going to have to start out with an F tier for me. Next up is Soligo, who's a guy who's kind of been partnered up with him for a while. They were on 100 Thieves at the same time, and Soligo's another guy who we've seen a little bit of. I'm not super impressed with him. I think he's going to be one of the weaker mid laners in the league, but I'm glad he's getting a chance. I'm glad we're trying to finally develop some young talent. Maybe he'll work out eventually, but I don't think Spring Split's going to be his time. That's an F tier for me. Next up, we have Someday, who is returning as the top laner for 100 Thieves. This is super exciting. He was a beast last year. There were some questions about like how 100 Thieves was really using him, some questionable drafts, making him play some weird picks, making him play a weird style. But I think those will all be remedied this year, and 100 Thieves got way better. Someday now has a way better team to play around him with all their new acquisitions. He's going to be an S tier for me. I think he's one of the best top laners, if not even the best top laner in the league. Next up, we have Newbie. He is coming over to Golden Guardians from the Latin American leagues. He was an absolute beast over there. It'll be interesting to see how that translates to the LCS, how he's going to take that big jump just straight from a more minor league up to a more major league. He has insane stats. It looks like he has an insane champion pool. I haven't actually seen much of him play, but it looks like he'll be interesting. Golden Guardians is going to be kind of a weaker team, so I think it'll be tough to shine too much. He's going to be a C tier for me, but I am kind of excited about him. I'm excited to see how Newbie does in the LCS. Next up, we have Blabber. This is our Spring Split MVP. Summer Split was a little more rocky, a little shakier for him. He kind of started just bouncing up and down. I'm going to be putting him in the A tier. He's definitely S tier potential, but he's got to show us that consistency. He's going to absolutely pop off with perks, but again, it might be perks carrying that a little bit more. Blabber's a guy I'm going to be keeping an eye on for sure. He has that MVP potential. He just got to get to that MVP consistent level. Next up, we have Diamond, who's going to be the new support for FlyQuest, teamed up with Johnson in the bot lane. I think they're going to be absolutely disgusting together. I think FlyQuest is going to be a really dark horse team. A lot of people have them as kind of their sleeper team. I think Diamond's going to be a B tier sport. I think he's going to be real solid, but I don't think he's going to be able to crack into that upper level right away, but I think he has the potential to get there eventually. Next up, Fudge is the new top laner for C9. I'm going to be starting him off in the high B tier. I know people are super excited for him. I know he absolutely smurfed in Academy. But again, getting to the LCS, doing it is going to be tough. LCS top laners look really tough this split too. LCS has a ton of top lane potential. He is going to play in a great team. That's going to make things good for him for sure. But again, a young player, a lot of question marks. He's got to prove it to me first. High B tier. If you put him in low A tier, I wouldn't complain too much. He definitely has that kind of potential. Next up, we have Licorice. He is going over from Cloud9 to FlyQuest. FlyQuest is using him as kind of their superstar, their centerpiece that they're building around. I do think Licorice is an absolute beast. This is another guy who, as Cloud9 fell off in the summer split last year, Licorice did start to fall off a little bit as well. I think that's just one bad split when he's had a ton of good splits. I think he's going to be able to rebound well. But he's going to be on a much worse team now. Cloud9 was one of the best teams in LCS history last year. FlyQuest is not going to be that. So I got him in the A tier. I do think he is a great player, but I think we might see a little bit of regression with Licorice in that manner. Next up, we have Palafox. This guy is getting the keys to FlyQuest. He is the new mid laner for them. This is another guy who absolutely dominated Academy. If Fudge was the best player in Academy, Palafox was probably second. People are really, really excited for him. A new hyped NA mid laner. I hope he does well because, again, NA can always use mid lane talent. I'm going to start him off in the low B tier. We always hear about these young North American mid laners who are going to come up and be really, really exciting, but we haven't had a ton of them pan out like entirely. I know Demonte's like pretty good. Pobelter's like pretty good, but nobody's really cracked into that upper echelon. But there was some rumors that LEC teams were looking at Palafox, so that does make me think a little bit more that he might be the real deal after all. Next up, we have Vulcan, obviously the support for Cloud9. He's looked like a beast, absolutely huge playmaker. He's going to be paired up with Sven again in the bot lane. They're going to be super, super exciting and fun to watch. I have him as like a low S tier. He's very, very solid, very consistent. He's an absolute beast. I have him as like the third best support in the LCS though, so maybe that makes him an A tier. I'm not really sure what even constitutes these different tiers. I'm just going off what I think about these players. Next up, Sven. He's an S tier for me as well. Obviously, he's an absolute beast. He has insane stat lines. He always puts up insane farm, insane damage, crazy KDAs. He's really, really rock solid. Again, Cloud9 kind of faltered last year a ton. It's hard to know who to blame it on entirely or how well all these Cloud9 players are going to bounce back. But Sven's an absolute class veteran. I wish he would pop off a little bit more with like huge carry performances, but he's as consistent and solid as they come. He's always on like really, really good teams in North America. He's going to be a beast for Cloud9 once again. Pobelter returning to CLG this split. He's a B tier for me. He's kind of like that gatekeeper. Like if you're better than Pobelter, you're a very, very good mid laner. But if you're worse than Pobelter, you're like probably on your way out of the league. I don't know. He's always going to be in that like 5th, 6th, 7th best mid laner category. Your team's going to be real solid if you have him, but you're never really going to take that next step. I mean, there was times obviously where Pobelter was on the best teams in North America, but then teams were always trying to replace him because he was always kind of seen as the weak link. He's very, very good North American mid laner. Those are hard to come by, but that's a B tier for me. Next up, we have Smoothie. He is the support returning for CLG. He's paired up with Wild Turtle now, which should be an upgrade over Stixay, so we might see a little bit of a bump in Smoothie's play. But I honestly don't really think he's that good. I don't rate him that highly. I think he's one of the weaker supports in the league. He's going to be like a low C tier for me. I was kind of hoping that CLG might replace him and go a little young with their support at this position, because CLG doesn't really have a ton of like new unproven guys that they're building towards the future for. But yeah, I'm not that high on Smoothie. I think he's a C tier. Then we have his bot lane partner from last year, Stixay, who's going to Golden Guardians. I have him in the C tier. Golden Guardians, just a team that is kind of in like that full rebuild mode. It's a super, super young team. Maybe some promise, maybe some talent, but then they just have Stixay randomly thrown in there. Hopefully his veteran leadership can kind of help those guys learn and grow and everything. But I do think Stixay is better than he has been playing on CLG. I think he could bounce back, but I think he's going to be in a really, really rough situation. It's probably going to be difficult to stand out. Next up, we have Aframu. He's going to be an easy C tier for me. This is a guy, again, there were some rumors that he might retire. I honestly thought he was going to. He has not been the player that he once was. He has not been that MVP caliber type support like back in his 100 Thieves days or CLG days or anything like that. And Dignitas isn't going to be a very, very good team once again, so it's just kind of weird that he's sticking around playing on kind of these bottom tier teams. He must really just love competing, love getting to teach the next generation of players the game and everything, and he's obviously making a good amount of money, so it's fun, good for him. But I don't know, I'm not super excited for him either. I think supports in the LCS are kind of weak. I don't think Aframu is contributing to them that much, because it's just sad to watch a guy who used to be such a huge playmaker just not really be that anymore. Next up, we have Neo. This guy's formerly Asta. We've seen him a little bit in the LCS before. He's a new AD carry for Dignitas. I'm really not excited about him. I think he's going to be one of the weaker AD carries in the LCS. Easy F tier for me. Next up, we have Dardoch, who's returning for Dignitas. I have him in low C tier. I think he's honestly one of the worst junglers in the LCS. There was a time where I was a huge Dardoch fan back in the day, back in his prime, where he was coming up as like a huge playmaker. He had all the, the breaking point with Team Liquid, all that stuff. He was exciting, and he was very, very good. Since then, he came off a really, really rough split with TSM where he looked really bad. He had played with Dignitas last year. Maybe he looked a little bit better. But again, just a guy that I'm not really excited for. Way past his prime. That's a C tier for me. Next up, we have Johnson, who's a new AD carry for FlyQuest. Again, people are really, really excited about this team. This is an easy A tier for me. This guy's been an absolute monster since he took over in the starting roles of a couple different teams like Dignitas last year. He has been, not a couple different teams, just playing on Dignitas, but he's looked like a monster. He's been a beast. He has insane stats. He has played and looked really, really great, even on some not so great teams. He really looks like the 80 carry talent of the future for North America, like him in Tactical. He's an A tier for me. I think he could definitely move into the S tier this year. It depends how good Diamond is, how good the rest of his FlyQuest team is. We will see, but A tier is not a bad spot to be in. Next up, we have Deathly, who is the 80 carry for Evil Geniuses. I was shocked by this, honestly. There was a couple different rumors for where Evil Geniuses was going to go. They end up going with Deathly. I was very, very surprised. This guy I'm not very high on. He might surprise people a little bit. He might surprise me a little bit. Maybe I've been too hard on him. Maybe he's going to be like a C or B tier. I'm going to be putting him in the F tier. I'm really not excited. I think he's going to be one of the weaker 80 carries. And I think he's going to be the clear weak spot on this Evil Geniuses team. Next up, we have Huni. He is coming into TSM, the new top laner. There was just a Bjergsen interview the other day where Bjergsen said he believes that Huni is one of the most underrated players in the LCS. He thinks people are really, really sleeping on him, and that's getting me hyped. That's getting me excited. I know Bjergsen maybe doesn't have the best track record of like judging and evaluating talent, but he believes that Huni is going to be a beast this year. I mean, just with what we've seen of him recently, I have to put him in the C tier to start out. He needs to prove it to me. He needs to show it to me. And if he doesn't, they have Haunter ready to replace him. But I am excited that Bjergsen had some good things to say. Next up, we have Jizuke, mid laner for Evil Geniuses. He is returning. This is another guy that I was very, very shocked by. I thought the Evil Geniuses were going to go get somebody like Nemesis, go maybe get a bigger name mid laner, a guy who is coming off a better year than Jizuke because he did not have the best year of his career. He did not even have a very good year. To me, he's a C tier. He has like a S tier talent, but man, his consistency is such an issue. Yeah, you could put him in low B tier. I wouldn't argue with that too much, but if you put him much higher than that, I think you're being a little too optimistic. He's coming off a not good year. He is a C tier for me. Next up, we have Svenskeren. This is the jungler for Evil Geniuses. This is another guy who, like, former MVP type talent. And he's still been good. He's still been pretty consistent, but he hasn't just been that huge, insane carry that maybe he once was. I have him as like a high B tier. I could maybe put him low A tier. I could definitely see that. But again, I think Evil Geniuses is going to be kind of a middle of the pack team. So it's going to be hard for Svenskeren to shine too much. But getting impact in the top lane should be really, really nice for Svenskeren to be playing around. That should help him out a lot. But still, the mid-jung of Jizuke Svenskeren, I still have some question marks about that. We'll see how it goes. Next up, we have Ignar, who is now the support for Evil Geniuses. I thought this was a huge pickup. I'm a real big fan of Ignar. I think he's a huge playmaker. I think he has a proven track record on many different teams and many different leagues internationally. He is just good. He is rock solid. He has some question marks maybe about his attitude, about tilting, stuff like that. That kind of weirds me out, kind of puts me off to him. But I think he's a beast. That's an easy A tier for me. Next up, we have the new mid laner for TSM, Power of Evil. I'm going to be throwing him into the S tier. I think he's honestly a little bit underrated, a little bit slept on. He's a huge playmaker. He's super consistent. He's always so good. He makes whatever team he's on better. Again, this is a guy who's done it multiple teams, multiple leagues. He's done it internationally. He's gone toe-to-toe with the best mid laners in the world, and I think he can do that in the LCS, and he's going to be put to the test going up against guys like Jensen and Perks when TSM's playing some of the better teams, and maybe teams with even better rosters in TSM. Power of Evil has a lot of pressure and stuff on him, obviously replacing Bjergsen, and we'll see how that goes. I am excited for him. If Bjergsen was going to leave, I'm glad Power of Evil is his replacement. Next up, we have Revenge, who is going to be the new top laner for Immortals. This is a guy who I'm not super excited about. I think he's going to be one of the weaker, if not the weakest top laner in the league. He's an F tier for me. Next up, Santorin coming over to Team Liquid. Huge pickup for them. A huge upgrade over Broxa. Santorin might just be the best jungler in the league. Obviously, Blabber at times has something to say about that, but I have Santorin in the S tier. I think he is very, very good. I think he's going to fit great stylistically into Team Liquid, and I think him and Team Liquid are both going to have a big year. Next up, we have Wild Turtle, who is, he's weird for me. I don't know if he's low A tier or high B tier. I guess I'm going to throw him into the low A tier. He's coming off 2 LCS final appearances with FlyQuest, but maybe he was one of the weaker links on FlyQuest. He's on CLG now, which is going to be extra rough. I think CLG is going to be a middle-of-the-pack team. I don't even know if they'll be able to make the playoffs. I think he's going to be laning with Smoothie, which will be really, really tough. I'm actually going to throw Wild Turtle into the B tier. I'm going to put him as one of the higher B tier players. He's real solid, but he's just not super exciting, not super interesting, and I don't know just how good he is, if he is as good as some of those other guys. Next up, Perks, the new big guy in North America. I think he's the best player in the league. I think this is a huge pickup for Cloud9. I think it's going to be so exciting and interesting to watch. All of a sudden, Cloud9 went from a team last year who didn't even make it to Worlds. Now they're a team who has a chance to make it to Worlds and do some damage, and that is super exciting. he is an easy S tier for me. Next up, Blaze Olive. I've got him in the C tier. This is a guy who I've been waiting for him to get his shot in the LCS. It sucks that it's coming on Golden Guardians because I think their roster is going to be pretty rough, and I don't think it's going to be the greatest situation for him to shine. But I think he's deserved a spot in the LCS for a while. I think he's going to be fun to watch. I hope he does well. Next up, we have Closer coming over from Golden Guardians, 200 Thieves. Again, that same roster sticking together, except now he has Someday in the top lane. Closer was a beast last year. He's going to be a beast this year. That's an A tier jungler for me. Demonte, also one of these guys going from Golden Guardians to 100 Thieves. Demonte is another one of these guys, kind of Poe Belter-ish, Poe Belter-esque. I do have him above Poe Belter. I think he's a B tier mid laner. Super, super solid. Again, mid lane talent is hard to come by in the LCS, and Demonte is one of the better ones, but he's just kind of always going to be an average middle of the pack mid laner, but he's on a team in 100 Thieves with huge carries in the top and bot lane, and he can play that facilitator style really, really well. So I think he actually makes a lot of sense in this 100 Thieves lineup. But again, like at international events or against the best teams, like I think he's going to get hard exposed by like Team Liquid and TSM. So I think it'll be a little bit rough, but it's B tier, not bad. Next up, we have FBI. I'm super, super high on him for this year. I think he might just pop off and be the best AD carry in the LCS this year. Coming off a really great split, a really great year. He looks like a beast. He's just really good. I really like him. Easy S tier AD carry for me. His laning partner is Huhi. I have him as like a high B tier. Again, this is a guy who's a former mid laner, role swapping to support, still kind of learning all about the position, learning the intricacies, matchups, playstyle, all of that, kind of coming into his own. I think he has surprised people with just how good he's been as a support, but I also think getting to lane with FBI, getting to play on these good teams has helped him out a lot as well, because Golden Guardians team was pretty good this year. He is good, but I don't know if I'm ready to put him in the A tier just yet. He could break into it this year, but I got him in B for now. Next up, we have Insanity, who, of all the young mid laners, I thought he looked the best last year. I have him as like a high C tier. He did have some weird plays and some throws where he lost his team some games, but he had his team in position to win some games. This is a guy who, if he continues to grow and get more consistent and learn how to be an LCS pro and stuff, I think this is a guy who could like overtake Poe Belter as kind of the like his spot in the North American mid lane rankings and stuff. I'm starting him out as C tier, but I could think he could definitely make it into like mid B tier over the course of the season. I do actually like what I've seen from Insanity in the LCS so far. Next up, we have Raze. He is the new AD carry for Immortals. I'm not super excited about him, not super high about him. He's one of these OPL guys coming in. We'll have to see exactly how he does. As a guy who, again, I haven't seen a ton of him, but I do need him to prove some stuff to me. I'm going to be starting him out in the C tier for now. Then we have Niles. This is a guy who, you know, let's see what he does. People are really, really excited for him. He's saying he's going to save North America. He's going to be Captain America, blah, blah, blah. He's a guy from Maryville University who is skipping over the Academy League, is skipping over the Academy scene, and that's tough to do. We'll see how it goes. Best of luck to him. For me, I've got to start him out in like low C tier. I could even put him in F tier just because I have huge question marks about him. I don't know how he's going to be able to come into the league. And again, I think top lane looks really, really rough in the LCS this year. Someday, Alfari, Licorice, like there's a ton of huge names, a ton of very, very talented guys. And then you still have like Fudge and some of the new guys coming in, Impact. So it's a tough time to be a young top laner. We're gonna see what he's got, but he's got an interesting attitude. He's gonna be fun to watch. Next up, we have Alfari coming over from the LEC. Some people think he's maybe the best European top laner. Obviously, Wonder would have something to say about that, but Alfari's laning stats are absolutely insane. He's a beast. He's always generating leads, always carrying games. That's exactly what Team Liquid needs. I think that's going to fit very, very well in with kind of like Santorin's facilitative style of jungling. I think they're going to be awesome together. He is an easy S tier top laner for me, and I'm really excited to get to watch him play more often now that he's in North America. Next up, we have Destiny, new support for Immortals. I think we've seen him in the LEC before. He was very, very solid. I don't think there's any reason to guess that he's going to come to the LCS and not be really, really solid some more. He's a B tier support for me. We have Xerxes, another guy who, when he was in Europe, he looked very, very good at times, and he looked very, very bad at times. Some people really thought he was kind of the next up-and-coming young jungler for Europe, and then he's coming off not that great of a 2020. He's headed over to Immortals. I have him as like low B tier. I think he's talented. I think he could rebound a little bit, but also sometimes when people come to North America, they don't rebound and they just kind of get worse, especially when they're playing on a not so great roster, which I don't think Immortals is going to be that good. So Xerxes, I could see C tier. I could see B tier. I'm going to be throwing him in B. Jose Diodo, this is a guy that a ton of people are excited about. He is like a mid B tier jungler for me. He's coming into FlyQuest, coming off a really, really great Worlds performance. He has a ton of fans. He's a huge playmaker, exciting talent. People are excited about him. I think he's going to come into the LCS and be pretty solid. He could break into that A tier maybe this year, but obviously it's going to take some time to kind of get used to everything. We'll see how that goes. Next up, we have Finn. He is coming over from Rogue, where at times, Rogue, Finn was a beast over in Europe. Obviously, Rogue was a very, very good team, but towards the end of summer split, into the summer playoffs, into Worlds, Finn kind of looked like their weak point. Obviously, he got replaced. Now he's on CLG. Him and Broxa, both with a chip on their shoulder, both with something to prove. I'm going to be putting him in the low B tier for now. Again, this is another guy. You could have him in C tier because he's coming off not that great of a year, but I mean, he was still playing at Worlds. He was still playing on some good teams. I think he has something to prove. I think he's going to rebound this year pretty well. Next up, we have Iconic, who a lot of people are surprised is even starting in the LCS. People don't really know if he deserves this shot yet. He's going to be an F tier for me. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how he's able to do, but people have some serious question marks about him. Kind of a weird signing from Golden Guardians. Next up, we have Sword Art, who for me is going to be an S tier sport. This isn't in order, by the way. This is just tiers. Next up, we have Sword Art, the new TSM support. Obviously, a huge pickup, one of the biggest pickups in the whole offseason coming from TSM. He's the highest paid player in the LCS, and I think he's going to perform just like it. I'm hoping that Sword Art and Lost can kind of be a tactical and Core JJ type dynamic where they both are kind of learning together, and Sword Art really helps Lost develop into the next great North American AD carry. We'll see how that goes, but I think Sword Art could bring a new style, some new flair to TSM. I know people have some question marks about, Sword Art got carried at Worlds, blah, 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 but I still think he's a very good player. I think he's going to come over to the LCS and be just fine. Next up, we have Broxa. He's a B tier jungler for me. Great guy, great personality, fun to watch, but he was not very good for Team Liquid last year. He wasn't super terrible, but Team Liquid wanted to be great, and he was not that. To me, he's going to be a low B tier. He's a guy with a ton of question marks, a ton to prove. Hopefully, he can bounce back well for CLG, but if he doesn't, he might be out of the league pretty soon. Next up, Core JJ, easy S tier, reigning MVP. It'll be interesting to see him and Perks kind of battle it out for best player in the LCS as the course of the season goes. It'll be interesting, but Team Liquid's going to be very, very good, and a huge part of that is going to be Core JJ. Impact, he is going to be an A tier top laner for me. He is very, very good. He actually had a surprising amount of solo kills last year. I know people kind of say him as like a weak side top laner, not a super lane bully, not super lane dominant, but he did have a pretty good year. But again, this guy's moving over to Evil Geniuses. I think his team's going to be a little bit worse. I think it's going to be a little harder for him to be successful. But he's still a beast. I still got him as A tier. He's very, very consistent, solid veteran. Any team would love to have him. Next up, we have Jensen, who is going to be an S tier mid laner for me. I'm not the biggest fan of Jensen. I think he's kind of inconsistent. I think he kind of chokes on the biggest stages. But again, Team Liquid is going to be super good. Jensen is consistently solid. He's not consistently amazing, but you know what you're getting from him for the most part. He's not usually going to just absolutely throw away a game or get absolutely stomped in lane or anything. I do wish he was a little bit more consistent, a little bit better, but it'll be okay. I think he'll get exposed by Perks in lane sometimes. I think he might have some bad games against Power of Evil. But other than that, he's obviously one of the best mid laners in the league because mid lane talent is super, super weak in the LCS. So he does stand out. That's S tier for me. Next up, Tactical. I'm going to be putting him in the A tier. I almost want to move Jensen down to the A tier as well. But I do have Tactical down in the A tier. He is a very, very good AD carry. He had absolutely insane stats. But I don't know if he is as good in my eyes as Sven and FBI just yet. Again, it'll be interesting to see. I think Core JJ does carry that lane a little bit as well. Obviously, I think a lot of people do as well. But Tactical is very, very good. He's going to continue to develop. He is absolutely has a massive, massive bright future ahead of him. And yeah, I just, the S tier looks like it's getting a little bit full to me. I had to move some people down. I do think Tactical is very, very great. High A tier, maybe low S tier. But yeah, he's not in that upper echelon just yet. I need to see a couple more splits, a little bit more consistency year over year. And that you could say that same thing about FBI too, I guess. Then we have Lost. I have him in the B tier starting out the year. We'll see how that goes. We've seen him in the LCS before. He wasn't amazing, but that was a long time ago. He has a new team. He has a new coaching staff that should be exciting. Obviously, he's going to be playing under Sword Art, and we'll see how that goes. And then finally, the last man on this tier list, the jungler for TSM, Spica. I am in the A tier. I think he has a very, very bright future ahead of him. I think he's an awesome young jungle talent. I love his attitude. I love his gameplay. He's super, super exciting, super fun to watch. And I think he could be the jungler of the future for TSM. I think he's going to be a very, very good one. I think, honestly, he could start to this year compete with like Blabber and Santorin for perhaps best jungler in the LCS. But there it is, boys. There it is. I just ranked all 50 players in the LCS. Here is my tier list, S, A, B, C, and F. This is what I think is going to be happening in the spring split and the LCS lock-in tournament in 2021. But I would love to hear what you guys think as well. Definitely let me know what I got right, what I got wrong. Comment some of your tier list, thoughts, opinions, anything down below. Obviously, it was a super long video, a ton to get through. So you can't really comment on everything, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Definitely drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to update on my latest content. Check me over at Twitch, twitch.tv/I_am_jerm. Make sure you guys check out Draftbuffs. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.